Harry, how you doing? Good to see you again, buddy.
Likewise, it's nice to be here. I've decided a slightly different setup, so I'm not standing today. I'm going to chill out and have an evening sitting down on the floor. Very
good. And I'm on time, so that's good.
So tell us what's going on.
I had a bit of an idea for today's show. So I'm coming to this show today. Last time I was a little bit down, still was with my dad, and we talked about our parents. And we talked a little bit about some of the stuff I do in terms of the athletic side. So I'm training for a couple of Ironman races and different bits and pieces. So I thought earlier on I'd get a new goal for me, which is try and get a good handicap in golf. Right. So I don't have one. I don't really play golf. Picked it up. And I thought it's a safe sport. It's a safe sport that I can do in my spare time, mindfulness, fresh air, a couple of hours on a golf course, just get my mind in order. And it won't really impact my training. Fresh air is a good thing. But lo and behold, I slipped on a hill in the wet and I've torn my quad. I'm in agony. It's day 2. I've been icing it. I've been resting it, but I'm absolutely gutted. I'll be honest, I'm gutted. I don't know where it leaves me for my training. I don't know where it leaves me for the races I've got signed up. And I thought, you know what, who better to speak to about this than Harry Kalymnios, because I'm trying to talk about wrestling with your mind. I'm trying to stay positive. I'm trying to think, right, how can I turn this into a positive? But if I'm honest, I am really pissed off. Yeah. I don't know what else to say. I'm just really angry. I'm angry that I did it in something that shouldn't have really had an injury playing golf of all things. Yeah. Trying to do the right thing, and I've injured myself, and it's innocuous, and it's thrown all my training out.
Well, yeah, I mean, to be fair, the last time I played golf, actually, which was with a mutual friend of ours, Sam Pitt, probably back in 2010, I did something to my groin, which I think took years to kind of recover anyway. So, but I like...
That's not making me feel any better.
No, I mean, here's the thing as well, Nick. It's like, and I think you know that I've had some significant injuries in the past, which have required a lot of rehab and year-plus injuries with my shoulder and now with my knee. And I know what it's like when you don't exercise. For me, it really, as it does for most people, but like really affect them mentally as well. And I know last time you were speaking about how, running as well is your way of dealing with a lot of stuff.
100%. Yeah.
And so now clearly that's off the table at the moment. However, what I would say is, and when I got my last knee injury back in 2018, which I've only really just started to feel comfortable with recently. I was talking to someone today. It's taken me 4 years to get back to the point where I can comfortably sit on my heels, like on my knees. And it's taken a lot of work and 2 operations and everything else. But I did that 2 days before flying out to India to do a month of yoga training. And I
remember you talking about that in the last episode. Yeah.
Exactly. And so the only bit that jumps to my mind to help you out here, which may or may not be help, is again, it's all about reframing, right? With the mindset. One of the key things that I love, a big tool, is reframing. So like, how can you reframe or look at the situation you've got from a different angle? So it's not... There's an equation that I like from Jack Canfield, who wrote the hugely successful Chicken Soup for the Soul books. And I don't know if you've heard this before, but I write about it in the book that I'm releasing. And it says E plus R equals O. E plus R equals O. E stands for event. Most people think event equals O, which is O is for outcome. So like, you bust your leg, outcome is bad. You lose your job, outcome bad, right? Whatever. But actually the R is the thing that changes the equation. And the R doesn't stand for reaction, but it stands for response. And the difference between a reaction and a response is that response is more measured and generally something that you've got control over, whereas the reaction is a bit more immediate and usually not so positive. It's like if you went to a doctor and you were ill and they said, here, take this pill, come back in a week and see me. And they said to you, right, you've had this pill for a week, your body is reacting to it. Here, take this other pill, come back and see me in a week. And the week later, they say, okay, your body is responding to it. Most people would rather hear the responding bit. So the idea is that it's your response to the thing that matters. And so my question to you would be, now that this has happened and it gives you that opportunity to effectively rest in certain ways, what is it that you've been, say, putting off doing that you could maybe use that time for? Because you're training like 4, 5, 6 hours, 10 hours a week. I don't know what you're training.
Yeah, 10 to
But I
15 hours a
remember,
week.
well, so that 10 to 15 hours. Now, firstly, you don't have to put off all that training, because in my view, when I bust my knee, I use that as an opportunity to like focus on upper body strength, you know, the pull-ups, the push-ups, things that I wasn't good at before. But also I remember you saying that you wanted to write, you've got a couple of books in your head that you're wanting to get down as well.
I do. I mean, I guess that's what I've been trying to. I'm just so frustrated. I'm 3 months out from a race I've been training for several months, so I can't deny it's frustrating. And I think this is pretty much going to, well, it's definitely going to impact it if nothing else. So yeah, you're right. There's other things I can be doing. I'm trying to keep that positive mindset and listen to the advice that I know. I mean, I said to my wife earlier, you know what? I can still cycle with one leg. I can rest one, and I can do some single arm cycling, build the strength in my right leg. So,
well, maybe I don't. I personally, I would stay off the leg. But you're doing a triathlon in 3 months. Yeah, well, I would go swimming. I would go swimming and not use the legs. I would just focus on the arms. Just get into the pool, focus on swimming using just your arms. All right, do that. And I would just focus on that upper body strength, which maybe is not as useful in the running and the cycling. But I would also think, like, for me, it seems that your identity, a lot of your identity is tied towards performance and achievement and, you know, having that constant goal to kind of keep you motivated, right? Whereas I train for just general life and stuff. You're always training for an event. So what is this teaching you about that you can learn about yourself in terms of, you know, adapting that or tweaking that?
I'll tell you what I'm worried about. And this is something that I think is worth talking about. And I spoke about it briefly before coming on, is I've become very aware of the poisons in my life. And when I talk about poison, I think, okay, now I've got more time. Yeah, I can sit down and all the will in the world, I could sit there. Yeah, I could write a book now. I've got this 6-7 weeks off. In reality, it's not enough time to get what I want done. I could get the book started though, right? I appreciate that. But we talked before, I don't know if I've got enough motivation to make that my core focus at the minute. I want to be prepared where when I go for something, I know I'm going to finish it, whereas this is going to keep me out for several weeks. So what's come to mind more is I'm feeling angry, I'm feeling frustrated, and suddenly the poisons, the things that I know I shouldn't be doing, suddenly come a lot more attractive. So diet being number one. Like today I'm thinking, oh, well, if I can't train, I'm not going to get fit, I may as well eat biscuits. And I've had several today in my following. I think, all right, and I know I'm doing it. I think, well, I'm going to do it anyway. It's a bad, you know, that angel and devil thing going on in your shoulders. Yeah. And I thought, you know what? If I can't train, maybe I'll just I haven't played like computer games for so long. And there's a reason for that, because I know it's a vice of mine. If I get them out, I lose things. I try to be productive. I try to read, try to be really progressive. And it's something I know adds absolutely nothing to my life apart from I lose several hours achieving absolutely nothing. But they're the kind of things that start to come to the surface. We've got Cheltenham on today, you know, the Gold Cup. I don't mind a little bit of a, you know, a little bit of a gamble, a little bit of research into those kind of things. Like, oh, maybe I could do that. And I think, oh no, that opens up another little pathway of things that I know I'm susceptible to, because I do like a little bit of a gamble now and again. But then it throws me into starting to research stuff. So it's funny because I've only been injured for 2 days. I know I'm going to be injured for several weeks. And rather than look for all the positive bits, I'm being tempted in to the poison things that really don't add anything.
That's part of the process as well. That's part of the process, right? In that first bit, I don't know whether we go through the kind of the 12 stages of grief or whatever, 6 stages of grief, whatever it is, that, you know, with the denial, blah, blah, bargaining, whatever, all of these things. But your vices, it seems like, I suspect that a lot of them are like, it almost feels like you're trying to replace the high that you get from the exercise, the endorphin rush, the whatever the thing is that you're getting from exercise, with something else that is going to be creating that similar thing, right? Gambling, probably. You never know.
Just think of things you've given me there. That's sugar. That's a high. I hadn't realized it that way around, but yeah, a win or a gamble or winning some money, a high. Computer games. You know, I tend to play football computer games or you know, sporty ones where you win something, you know.
Yeah, because there's that you don't know what's going to happen next. That gives you that literally that that kind of hormonal change. You get that with food, because that's going to affect your, release of hormones once it's digested. You're getting that with the gambling. You're getting that with the computer games, because you're getting that stimulation. So knowing that, I guess the question becomes, is there something else that can give you that similar? Because like writing your book is not, right? That's just a fact. It's not going to give you that thing. So having that excess time is not going to help you in that regard. But knowing that you need to replace that high with another high of some sort, what could that be that is not going to be such an addictive vice? Because I remember you are like a bit of an all or nothing person. Like, you go full on in your exercise, you go full on the kind of maybe doing the bets, which is why you don't want to go into the betting thing. You go full in with all these things, right? You're quite extreme.
And I'm aware of it. So I'm
and I used to be, but I think something changed a few, probably about 12 years ago, and I think a lot of things changed, and I put a lot of that down to meditation, if I'm honest, because meditation really helped me create a response rather than a reaction in certain situations. But that's not the sexy answer that you're looking for. So my question is, what is the thing that can get you that high? Like, I don't know, and it might be, I don't know, joining a table tennis league for the next 4 weeks, right? Where you can have
I can't move. I mean, my injury's too bad for that. I get it.
Well,
I mean,
yeah, but something that is like, I don't know, or competitive chess, or do you know?
Funny you should say chess. I'm playing chess online at the minute, so there you go. That's an example of something I'm already throwing myself into to try and do it. But let me ask you then. So, I mean, I think you're probably right in terms of. I think it's because I need a bit more at the moment because of what's going on in personal life, right? So we talked in my last episode, my dad's unwell. I'm trying to get my mind off that stuff. And I know if I just immerse myself in computer games, for example, and by the way, for those listening, I haven't picked up a computer or played computer games for years. This is the first time it's popped up and become of interest now. And I think it's a bit of escapism, right? We need that sometimes. And I know I don't have to think about anything else. I'll get immersed into something else. But actually, I'm just killing time, and it's not healthy. Time is the most precious thing we have. It's one thing I tell myself. Of everything else, money comes and goes. Time is so precious that I don't want to give away a minute. So I know that's really bad, and it's surprising me that I'm listening to that voice that's telling me, "Go, come over here, come and turn this on for a little bit." And I justify it. I go, "Oh, I haven't shown my son yet. I haven't shown my son yet these computer games. Maybe this is an opportunity." And I'm finding a way of justifying the move. But I'm aware of it. I'm listening to that voice, and I'm trying to compartmentalize it and understand it.
It's not all bad, right? Like there is something to listen to the body. Now, I'm full on with the escape. For me, I never got into computer games because I know that I could be someone that then goes and spends hours doing computer games. And my parents never let us have computer games as a kid. And I'm really actually ultimately thankful for that. And I actually feel sorry for children today, because now, even if you don't have a console, there's games everywhere on your phone and everything else.
Sure.
And I know that I think once I borrowed like someone's Wii or something like that, my sister's Wii at some point, and I could find myself spending ages on it, and I just thought it's not a good thing. Now I have my own escapism, and I tend to be with movies. I tend to watch quite a lot of movies because that's my way of escaping things. But sometimes it's okay, right? It's good to have that escapism. That's the whole point, right? Your body, ultimately, your subconscious mind, the thing you need to understand, which I'm sure you do, but your subconscious mind, the main directive it's got is to keep you safe, right? That's basically it. And so it's trying to keep you safe in some way by getting you distracted because you don't want to think about other stuff that's going on or whatever else. So some of it means is allowing yourself to give into that. So that could mean that you have I don't know how it would work with the computer game, but for example, if you had a way of doing it, like normally with, like, say, the internet, I suggest to people, right, putting like your internet Wi-Fi thing on a timer. So, one of those cheap things. So it turns off at 10 o'clock or whatever time you set it. And yes, you can turn it back on, but like the internet takes like a few minutes to put on. And sometimes we just need that breaker state to kind of get us to think, okay, I've done enough. So I'm just wondering whether there's a way that you could, like, maybe even do that. Like you have your computer game, right? But then you have like, a little thing that turns it off automatically after an hour or something like that, just to give you enough to break that state.
Yeah, I mean, I think for me it's too dangerous. To go that way means that I'm gonna open Pandora's box and I'll end up finding something, and I just know myself too well. I'm interested to know for you. You said if movies is your escapism. I don't know about you, but if I play computer games for too long, I actually get that feeling inside of like almost like you've lost money gambling. That horrible gut when you go, I've just given away. But I haven't done this for a long time because I haven't played them for a long time. But I feel like I've just given away 4 hours of my life, and you get that almost like I've lost. Because instead, well, for me it's the same. I've lost time for no reason. It feels the same, if not worse, than losing money. So whether it's gambling or whether it's computer games, you just get that tightness and that guilt and that it's horrible. So I know that thought is too strong for me, I think, to actually go down that path. But it's interesting how much it's tempting me in. So what let's say you're in the same thing. So when you were going to go to India to do yoga, you got your injury, or even if it's not that incident, what's your poison? What are the temptations that you have to be mindful
of? For me, it's definitely, and definitely like things like movies and TV shows. Like, so I don't get into TV shows if I can help them, because I'm like, especially with these kind of box set type things everywhere, because I will just go and blitz, 10 seasons in like 2 weeks, right? Because I don't have an off switch when it comes to that sort of stuff. So I tend not.
Brilliant series out there at the moment, aren't there?
I tend not to watch anything that's good, right? So like I've never watched The Wire, House of Cards, Game of Thrones, Ozark, even The Last of Us. Anything that people are saying is really good, I tend not to watch. But even like things that are mediocre, like recently I re got into watching New Girl, which was like a comedy show, and I just wanted some comedy for like 20 minutes here and there. And I ended up watching like 6 or 7 or 8 episodes in an evening, right? Which is like a good amount of hours. And I just thought, you know what, I've just got to get through it now, accept that I'm going to have a couple of weeks where it's going to be a bit non-productive in the evenings, and be okay with that. That's why I tend to like movies, because then it's one and done sort of thing. So like that's a vice. Food is always going to be one of those things as well, because like for me anyway, when I can't exercise, I'm a bit like you, and I'm like, well, okay, what's the point? I'll just step 10 steps back, and then I'll sort it out when I can move and exercise my body. I think the biggest thing for me has been this idea of forgiving yourself for like being less than perfect. Because I think sometimes with being like people who consider themselves achievers or A-types or something like that, feel like everything, you've got to be perfect, or you've got to always be utilizing every minute of the day. But actually, sometimes being productive is actually being doing nothing, right? And going backwards a little bit, and having those experiences where you're going backwards, so to speak, so that you can then know to move forward again. And I think going into that, recognizing that in the first place, you're already kind of winning. It's just when you go into that and you maybe don't have that awareness, and then you don't know how to get out of it. That's the thing. But because you're going to go into whatever, let's call it a downward spiral, even though it's not a downward spiral, but let's call it that.
Sure.
You're going into that with that awareness. So you're basically going into a tunnel knowing there's an exit, as opposed to going into a cave. And there's a difference there, I think. How long that is debatable, but
it's made me think about the kind of poisons that do exist, though. And I've labeled it poison, and we could obviously label it whatever we want. And in my head, I labeled it poison. But
vices, challenges.
It's funny because you read books and they say, if you've got that friend, I say friend in inverted commas, that's always negative, always pulls you down, actually how much do they add? And sometimes, poison could be that person in your life that just doesn't add people bad about it. It could be alcohol, it could be, or whatever those things are that you just know aren't good for you, but we kind of continue down that path anyway. And so I use the word poison. It's the only word I could really think of that related to a whole array of different potential things that can tempt you into doing something, or even not tempting. Doesn't you just do it because it's routine, it's what we know. So I'll have that extra drink, or I'll go and see that person, even though I don't enjoy myself, because it's just what I've always done, and we don't always necessarily get familiar with the impact it's having.
Well, it's safe and it's secure, and you're going back to something familiar. That's the thing.
Yeah.
And so like it might be that, that friend is not the best person to be around because they're always negative or always criticizing you or something, but maybe they're someone that you knew way back when, and now you feel like you need something that effectively. Like,
well,
because we're always afraid of the unknown, so when we go back to familiarity, we feel comfortable, and it goes back to the whole thing is the brain is trying to keep you safe, right, and secure, and it's like, what is it that's going to do that, right? Well, playing computer games might keep me safe and secure because I've also got a level of control, right? Some of it's to do with control, so you've got some level of control because you can shoot the bad guy or score the goal or whatever. Right now you feel out of control, I presume, because you've got this thigh, this quad situation going on, and you feel like you don't have that level of control that you normally do to do your training, to perform in the way you want. And so I don't know, maybe the internal conflict is coming from not having a sense of control when you go into, let's say, gambling or food addiction or gaming. I don't know. And you're looking for some level.
I think some of it's probably down to the fact that typically I would consider myself, my wife may disagree, she'll say I get quite stressed, but I think I'm pretty carefree, upbeat, positive, always, pint half full, one half empty kind of a guy. But I've got a bit of anger because it happened through something, from a situation that just shouldn't have happened. I was just playing a leisurely round of golf that didn't put any of the other things in jeopardy in my mind. So I'm angry with, I don't know what with, but there's an emotion that I don't tend to let in that often. It's not something that I think others would necessarily proportion to me as one of my key emotions. So I'm trying to kind of keep that anger animal back, push it back down, but I'm frustrated. I want to let it out in some way, and maybe it's just like,
you're frustrated that. So had this injury happened because you were doing a triathlon,
I think I could reason with it. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So I don't know whether it's that sense of embarrassment or whether it's that sense of, it's like when sometimes I've tweaked my neck just brushing my hair, right, for some reason, and this is not even a joke, right? Like, I actually don't brush my hair because I haven't actually owned a comb or a brush since I was 14, but like with a hand sort of thing. And I haven't done this for years, and I've done work on building things up, but it's always the straw that breaks the camel's back sort of thing. But I wouldn't be too upset with that. I think it maybe, again, it comes back to, what is this situation trying to show me? Is it trying to show me humility? Is it trying to show me that you could do everything right and then you do the simplest thing and you're still going to get injured? And actually maybe that means, and again, I say to people, nothing means anything except for the meaning you give it. So if you choose that the meaning of this is that, well, actually, if I can get injured, like just doing a round of golf like that, then screw it. Maybe I should go and do crazy extreme Red Bull style sports, right? Because actually, if I can get injured playing golf, I might as well just do all the crazy stuff as well, right? That could be the meaning, right? Other people might take a different meaning from it altogether and say, I shouldn't do anything right anymore, right? But you choose that, so it's up to you to decide what it means to you. I think
it made me want to do today's show, though, because I thought, you know what, if I'm feeling like this, let's explore it. It's a genuine thing that happened yesterday, and I've been frustrated. It did remind me of, and for those that may or may not have heard my other show, probably unlikely because it's quite niche in the world of HR and payroll. But I did a piece on a parable which is known as the good only feed the good wolf, and I know you know it because I was initially thinking about potentially calling this show The Good Wolf. So it's something that's really, really apparent in my mindset on a regular basis. But for those that aren't familiar with it, it's an old story where a child says to a grandfather, there's a terrible fight going on inside me. I don't know what's going on. I'm angry and I'm doing little things. And the grandfather says, well, look, the fight you're experiencing is a fight between two wolves that live inside of us all. And he said, one is evil, one is angry, one is envious, and it's greedy, and it's arrogant, and it's guilty, and it has self-pity and resentment and inferiority and all those emotions you can think of: pride, superior, ego, that one thing we should all definitely leave at the door, in my opinion. Whereas the other wolf, well, that's the good one. That's the joy, the peace, the love, the tranquility, serenity, humanity, empathy, which is so important, kindness, generosity. And they fight all the time inside of you. And the boy says to the grandfather, okay, but which wolf wins? And the grandfather says, the one that you feed. And you know what? Right now, I'm thinking I'm feeding the wrong wolf. I know it, and I'm really trying hard not to feed it. So in front of me, you'll be impressed. I've got a new water bottle we can talk about, which is keep myself hydrated. I'm not trying to. There's no wine on the table yet, but I'm thinking I'm not training. I could have a glass of wine. No, I'll stick to water or Ribena in my instance. I'm thinking, oh, I can go down and just purge myself on bad food because I'm feeling bad about it. But I also know that's going to put my training back even more if I go and do that. Actually, I need to try and be healthier than even when I was training, because then I'm not fighting to get back to. But these battles, they're constant. They're like, right. And it's good because I think I'm conscious of what's going on. Doesn't make the battle necessarily easier, but I'm aware. I think that's the awareness you talk about. I know it's there, so I can kind of reason with both wolves that are going on and try and stay on the side of the good one. And coming on this show and doing this recording with you again today was like, okay, that's the good wolf bit. That's the bit where we can talk it through, we can recognize it. You can give me some strategies or give me some ideas about how it's all working, and by the end of it, I'm still gonna have a bag quad. It'll be there for the next 7 episodes probably, but hopefully I'll come away with a slightly more positive mindset about how I can, wake up tomorrow morning.
Yeah, and I think it's okay. Like the reality is, right, and I say this to people all the time, we live in a relativistic universe, right? What does that mean? Is that nothing is good or bad, tall or short or anything, right? Unless it's relative to something else. And so when we talk about being positive, that's obviously being relative to negative. Therefore, you can't have the positive without the negative, because it makes no sense otherwise, right? And so experiencing the so-called negative that you may be feeling is a necessary part to experience the positive as well. Otherwise, it wouldn't be positive. It would just be...
This is that balancing of duality that we've talked
about. Exactly, before coming on. And I think this is just so important to understand. And I think, yeah, whatever wolf you feed is going to win. But at the same time, they both have started the battle with a full belly, right? And so that's okay. You're right at the beginning of the battle. So I think it's about recognizing that, doing your best to feed the good wolf, and then allowing the other one to kind of exercise itself out. Now, one of the things I've done a lot of work personally on kind of inner talk, using some of the things I learned doing NLP years ago, but for not going into all of that now. But one of the things I remember at one seminar I was at actually years ago, and I quite liked it because the guy was quite a good teacher, a guy called T. Harvecker. He's a bit of a salesperson actually, and he's a very, very good salesperson, and he kind of almost hypnotizes the audience into buying his stuff at the end. And I remember going to one seminar of his, and even 6 weeks later, I was still going, oh, maybe I should buy that thing, right? But I remember him talking about the inner critic and how some people in the audience will be getting caught up on something he says, right, that they don't agree with or whatever. Especially like someone like me who, I'm quite well read. I'm quite a little bit analytical, and I can quite pick up on things if I don't agree with them. And then I can be attached to that, right? So much so that I miss everything that comes afterwards.
Yeah.
And one of the things I remember him saying is that when that kind of voice comes into your head and it's talking about, oh, that person was, what he said is wrong. Okay, it should have been 50, not 30 that he said, or whatever, right? Is just say thank you, right, to your inner voice, your inner critic, whatever the thing is that's trying to get you to do the thing. And actually, I found that really worked for me. It's like, so when that negative voice comes in and says, oh, you can't do that, you can't, who are you to do that? I go, thank you, right? Because sometimes it just needs that acknowledgement to let it go again. So I'm just wondering whether there's something in there for you to take in terms of like not hiding these emotions, hiding these feelings, this frustration, whatever. It's just like, okay, thank you. I acknowledge that, right? I am frustrated. I am potentially susceptible to my poisons. Thank you. Thank you for reminding me that, right? Because I think rather than trying to come up with a solution straight away, it's first just acknowledge the problems that are happening rather than automatically going for it.
Yeah, I mean, I know the theory of acknowledging something as well. means it doesn't land. If you don't acknowledge it, it sits there often at the back thing. Whereas a bit like you talked to me, months ago about meditation, and I stuck with me. You just think about a cloud passing your window. Acknowledge it and let it pass, and that's the acknowledging piece. Whereas if you try and grab it and pull it in and realize you can't catch it, you're following. The next day you're frustrated you weren't able to reach it or couldn't get it in or couldn't gather it in. Actually, just acknowledge it and let it pass your window. That's probably the one thing about meditation, because I don't meditate like you do, that really stuck with me about sort of putting that into perspective. And I thought you mentioned earlier a couple of things that make up my mind moving. It was the idea of wanting to go to computer games because you just need that empty space, that time to just go, you know what, I just want to be with my thoughts, and I'm going to lose and free my mind a little bit, because the idea of flow is you're not thinking of anything. And the beauty of being on a computer game watching a movie is the only thing you're really thinking about is the immersive experience you've got in front of you, which means you're not thinking of all the stuff that's going on in your world, right? And you've got your dad's been on where mine has. But if I'm in a movie, I'm not necessarily thinking about that at that moment. I'm immersed in something else. And I think computer games give you that. So I think for those interested in the state of flow, that really, or Zen or whatever it is, it's when you go able to just get rid of all your thoughts. And that's kind of where you want to get to, in the place of enlightenment. Not taking it too far away. But what was interesting when you said that, I thought, was the idea of recovery. Now, obviously, I'm in a state of recovery now because of an accident. But what actually landed for me when you talked about the idea of computer games, which I thought was quite interesting, not saying I'm going to go down that path, was that, and you may have heard this before, I think it mentioned on the High Performance podcast, but the idea of a Grand Prix race that's won and lost in the pits. You've got these fast cars zooming around at 200-300 miles an hour, but actually it's won and lost in the pits. It's won and lost at the one moment they actually get to sit down and recover and stop. And then that's always sat with me, that idea of recovery, that we go to, and I'm one that does this, goes 100 miles an hour all the time, but I'm a little bit uncomfortable with not being uncomfortable in that speed of suddenly actually stopping and doing what actually most of the population seem to do, which is chill out in an evening and just watch TV or whatever. I find that sometimes uncomfortable. But maybe it's that recovery. And maybe my body is telling me that actually I just need to recover. I don't know if all of my muscles are at within 1 inch of being pulled or torn at the moment. I mean, slipping on a hill, that's why I'm frustrated. I can't believe this has happened. I literally fell on a hill and tore muscle. I don't know. Maybe my whole body's in that state.
I mean, it's possible. I mean, I remember thinking when I went to India, like originally when I was going to India, before I got injured, my intention was to work on this book that I've been writing for all these years, right? And I found it quite interesting. And again, this comes back to nothing has any meaning except for the meaning you give it. And I just thought to myself, you know what? This is actually forcing me, because when I go traveling, I actually like to move around quite a lot. I spend like 2-3 nights in one place, 2-3 nights in somewhere else, and I go. But this forced me. I could only go to really 2 places because I had to take a taxi from one end of Goa to another, because it forced me to actually slow down and sit and write and also do other things. Right, I started doing different meditations, Kundalini yoga, all of the things that didn't require me to move the body. I mean, it was so much pain. I didn't actually know at the time that I'd torn my meniscus as a bucket handle tear at the time, until I got an MRI done up there. But it forces you to do something. And actually maybe the body is telling you something. Like maybe, I found that sometimes when I get injured, like a minor injury, which maybe say keeps me off for a couple of weeks, and then I go back to say yoga, wow, I'm actually way better. And I didn't realize quite how on the edge I might have been before, because sometimes this is the one thing I've got, we both got Oura rings. So for the audience at home, an Oura ring is just like a sleep tracking device. Overall.
I've lost mine. I've put it down somewhere. Maybe golf is the problem. I put it down to play golf. I took it off. I won't have that. And I don't know why I took it off. I cannot find it. It's in my house somewhere. And I've got no idea. I've looked in all the obvious places. No idea where I put it. So that's an expensive loss at the moment, but I detract. You've frozen on me, Harry.
You've frozen on me as well. Okay, I think
I've got you back now. Got you back.
Okay, yeah. So, but just I think the last week or so, I've had some sort of virus as well, because I've been my scores have been a bit lower, and they only recently now, as I'm feeling better. I mean, I didn't feel bad. I felt all right, but instead of my scores being in the high 80s and 90s like they normally are, my readiness and everything else, they were in like the 70s, and I felt something was not quite right. And now they're picked up again. But what would be interesting is that, like, in my scores, always it says I am not giving myself enough downtime, and I'm thinking, like, what? Because I don't train hard like you, but I am quite active throughout the day, right? So I might be moving 3-4 hours a day in terms of, like, I might do an hour yoga, I might do half an hour rebounding, I might get on the bike for a bit to travel places. So I might be moving 3 hours, 4 hours a day. And it's always saying I'm not giving myself enough rest time, which I find interesting because I'm not really training hard. And so I don't, and I had a friend who got the Whoop, which is similar, and he only started resting more once he got the Whoop, and the Whoop was basically telling him, even though he felt great and he's a really high performer, runs.
Yeah.
Three businesses, and the Whoop stopped complaining that he was overexerting himself. Because I've always felt for years that you're running, and we don't see each other that often, but you are, like, always doing something. Like, you run 2 podcasts, a business, 2 kids, like all the things that you do. I just don't know how you do it, and I know part of the reason you do it is because you don't sleep as much as I do, maybe.
No, I do suffer with insomnia. That's something we should get into in other episodes.
Yeah,
sure,
we should definitely.
It definitely helps me be more productive.
Yeah, well, you get more done. But I always say to people, the best productivity hack that I know, and I tell this to the students I work with all the time, is sleep. That is the single best productivity hack there is out there. And there's countless studies that can prove me right in terms of, as well, injury as well. I don't think you've read, and maybe this should be the book review, Why We Sleep, Matthew Walker. I'm not sure if you're familiar
I've
with
read
that
a lot
book.
of sleep books, but
Yeah,
I mean, you and I might differ of opinion on this one, I think. I mean, I would love to get more sleep. So for those that, I love it because I tell people I've suffered insomnia for 24 years. I used to have a website dedicated to other sufferers. So I used to give advice, and I've read numerous books. I've been to Harley Street. I've done all sorts. I'm on medication. And I love it when people hear that I suffer insomnia. Oh, have you tried, I don't know, something so random? Have you tried reading before you go to sleep? Or have you tried thinking about yourself on a kayak going down? It's like, yeah, let's or this music. Like, it's all well intentioned, but unless you've really had 5, 6, 7 nights in a row of non-sleep, which I'm not in that state at the moment, but I have been in the past, it doesn't quite work. But
maybe that's another reason why you work, like, because I know that, for example, I struggle to sleep if I don't, say, get, like, maybe, like, say, 12,000 steps a day or something like that. I notice that my mind is busier, because actually, and the reason for this is your brain actually uses 20% of your energy needs at rest. And so if you've got excess energy in your body when you go to bed, the brain is the best place to burn that energy, actually, and that's why your mind will be racing. But you exercise loads and loads, and that, I'm sure that helps with your sleep, because then you're hopefully tired enough.
Yeah, I mean, I'm touch wood. I'm in a good spot at the minute. My sleep isn't too much of an issue, but I mean, here's a good example, right? So a lot of people would say the best way for sleep is to create a sleep environment and to have a routine and go to bed at the same time. I couldn't think of a worse bit of advice for me. The best advice for me, if I try to have an early night, my wife will tell you. My wife is someone who, head hits the pillow, she's out, she's gone. Like, she sleeps in a heartbeat. But if I go for an early night and she comes up to see me, like, I'll be wide awake. The whole mindset piece of just going, it's an early night, tells me I ain't going to sleep. So for me to have the routine I've got now, which is really good sleep, where my Oura Ring, when I'm wearing it, averages now about 4 hours 50 to 5 hours a night, and that's fine for me. I can survive on that quite happily. But I get that because I go to sleep when I feel tired, I go to bed. And there will be others that say, it's like, well, if you feel thirsty, you're already dehydrated. So maybe if I'm feeling tired, I'm already underslept. But for me, if I go to bed when I'm tired, I know I'll sleep. I haven't got to challenge it. I'm gone. If I go early and try and catch up on sleep, no chance. I'll end up being awake the entire night.
I would normally recommend, as you say, right, like, with the drinking water, I think, yeah, you should be drinking all the day, but, like, all the time, and not get to that thirsty point. But with the sleep, I do say go to bed tired. The challenge that most people have is the things they're doing in the preceding 3-4 hours are not helping that tiredness.
I'd accept that, the blue light, being a computer,
the blue light, the stimulus, all that. Yeah. And so, but I normally, I had issues with sleep for years, like in terms of, taking me a long time to get to sleep, usually like 45 minutes to an hour. And I used to think that was normal and average. And now typically, recently it's been a bit worse actually, but like typically for the last sort of 10 years, within 45 seconds now, I'm asleep. Now, a lot of that wasn't, and people will say if you fall asleep, and the Aura Ring will say as well, if you fall asleep within like say 5 minutes, then it's a bad sign because you're overtired. The challenge I have with that is that usually, although not recently, but usually before bed, I'm doing meditation for 15 minutes anyway. So I'm getting into that point. But what I was going to say is that it would be interesting when you find your Aura Ring to see what it does to your scores and everything else now that you're not going to be training too hard, because I feel like you're always been running at like 7,000 RPM or something like that because you're always doing something. And I'm wondering whether you're running 7,000 RPM in third gear instead of cruising at a fourth gear, and whether that's going to like burn things out a little bit,
Something that's come to mind, and this is nothing to do with what we just mentioned, but I'll be interested in that data as well if I ever find that ring. But genuine top tip for people, and very few people I think explore this. I don't know your thoughts on what I'm about to say, but I would imagine with your level of research, hopefully you'll agree, and maybe you've tried it yourself. But really top tip. So a lot of people wake up feeling really, really tired. Right? They press snooze, they press snooze, they press snooze. And they think it's because they haven't had enough sleep. And that may or may not be the case in that particular instance. But what we tend to do then is we think, I'm really tired, so I'm going to make my alarm a little bit later the following day. And then your snooze once twice, and you go later and later, and you think, oh, I'm getting up I usually get up at 7, and today I'm going to get up at 7:30. That's my lie-in. You wake up feeling even worse. Top tip, genuinely, is actually, if you move your alarm the other way and reduce the amount of sleep, because typically when you're about to wake up, you've got different circadian rhythms, which you know. But if you're waking up in the wrong sleep stage or cycle, you'll wake up feeling really, really groggy. If you wake up in the right cycle, you'll feel ready to tackle the world. And it could be, you can do this in 10 or 15 minute increments. So you can say, okay, every time I wake, if you're someone listening to this and every time you wake up, you feel really groggy and you're constantly resting with the snooze and you haven't got the ability to set it for later because you've got to get up for work, set it earlier. This is about being more productive, but just do it in 15-minute increments until you find the moment where you wake up and you don't need snooze. You're just ready to get out of bed. And there'll be that time. And it's all about adjusting. So you move it until you hit that light sleep moment and your body's actually ready to wake. And there are devices that help you with this. You get clocks that brighten up and all sorts, and they sort of come between your eyes. You might have some of these gadgets, but absolute game changer is finding the morning time where you wake up freshest. And for those that want to be more productive, in my instance, you want to get up and go for a run before work, and you think, I'm just too tired. You can make it happen. You really can. If you can work out when you're in that light sleep. Aura Ring will help tell you that as well. So you can work out when you can set your alarm, and sometimes there are devices that will guide you. But people always think they need more sleep. And actually, when you're at the other side, when you're on the wake up side of the coin, and we're only playing around with 50 minutes or half an hour, you may find actually by making you have slightly less sleep, by moving the alarm clock forward, you'll wake up feeling 100 times better than if you'd actually just press the snooze button
I mean, it depends. Yeah, like you say, it depends when they wake up in their sleep cycle, because like most people's cycles are about 90 minutes, somewhere between sort of 80 and 100 minutes. So you can kind of work it out. There is a way to work it out, like even from your afternoon slump time. I can't remember exactly how it is, but let's say I don't really have afternoon slumps so much, because also that's to do with how you eat and how you move and everything else. But usually you can sort of tell, like, let's say you're tired at 3 or something like that. Then we also have an ultradian rhythm, which is about 90-minute cycles. And you can then work out when you need to go to bed based on like every 90-minute increments, say till 10, 10:30, whatever. And then try and get however many 90 minutes you need overnight and work it out that way. So you don't necessarily have to keep setting your alarm 15 minutes early, although that's one way of doing it as well. But as you say, if you wake up in the lighter part of your sleep, even if you're getting up earlier, it will be better. And there are apps as well that will do that.
Just 15 minutes. That 15 minutes can change your life if you're someone that really struggles in the mornings. It could be a massive, and we always think we have to set it later, and that's not always the case. Although interestingly, with the Aura Ring, and we're talking about that a little bit now, One thing I've learned that's really helped me, so someone who suffered from something for an awful long time, and actually has given me, maybe it's a psychological thing, right? But the Aura Ring will tell you how much time you've been in deep sleep. Now, sometimes deep sleep obviously is the most restorative sleep, the most important sleep that we need, right? For those that aren't familiar. So deep sleep is really important. What's interesting is sometimes I can go to bed at, let's say, midnight, and I have 7 hours. It's a Saturday. And actually the deep sleep part of that might only be 90 minutes or less than that, an hour within my Aura Ring. And yet sometimes I can go to bed at, say, midnight and get up at 5 or 6, and it will tell me I've had 2.5 hours of deep sleep. Now, whether the Aura Ring's accurate or whether it's not, the thing for me is I can look at it and go, God, I've had no sleep. I feel really tired. Look at the Aura app and go, actually, I've had more deep sleep tonight than I would have had last night when I was in bed for longer. And it's a psychological boost. I go, you know what? I can face the world. I'm feeling a bit tired because I've only had 5 hours, but I've had an hour and a half or 2 hours of deep sleep. That's good. I'm ready to go.
Yeah, I actually sometimes find it kind of the opposite. So I'll find like, not the opposite, but like, let's say I go to bed later than I want to go to bed. Like, I know I've gone to bed at midnight and then I've got up at, say, 6 to go and do work. And for me, that's not enough, right? I like 8. My perfect is 8.25 hours in bed, providing me 7.5 hours of sleep according to the Aura Ring. But I'll wake up at, say, 6 and I'll go and I look at the different stats and I'll look at my HRV and I go, oh, that's a bit low, but why am I feeling quite good? And then it's usually, and I'll go and I was like, oh, well, there you go. I've had 2.5 hours of deep sleep tonight, as opposed to 1.5 hours or one.
Yeah.
So that's why I'm feeling good, even though I've only had 6 hours in total. Because I'll wake up and I go, I should not be feeling as good. And it's usually because I've had good deep sleep or particularly high HRV or something like that. And it's really, I find it really interesting. It's been really fascinating. I've had this now for 4 years, according to
the question is though, when you get that though, so for those who aren't familiar, HRV is of HR variation. It's there's a whole bit on it and we can talk about another time. But when you wake up feeling good, you only had 6 hours. Do you still, because you think, oh, I haven't had 8, go back to sleep? Or would you do what I would do and go, you know what, I feel good. I'm happy with 2 hours.
You know, I wouldn't know any of that. I wouldn't know any of that until about an hour or two after getting up, because I don't check my Aura Ring's always in Bluetooth mode, and I make a point of not checking it until I'm downstairs because I've moved the charger down there.
But even if you haven't checked it, if you wake up at 6 when you're expecting to wake up at 8, sometimes we wake up before alarms. Would you go back to the routine of your alarm, or would you get up at that point?
Typically, because of my routine these days, I try not to set any alarm, and I try to just wake up as and when. Tomorrow I have to be out the house by 7, so I'll be setting my alarm for 5:30. But if I woke up at 6, and I think like today, perfect point, right? I woke up at 6-ish, 6:30, because I have regular kind of bowel movements that will wake me up anyway. And I actually felt quite good. I thought, oh, I could get up at 6:30 or whatever time I got up. But I thought, you know what? I don't have necessarily the intention to do anything right now. And I had already planned that I wanted to go to yoga at midday. So I was like, I'm not going to go and do exercise first thing in the morning anyway. So I thought, you know what? I'll just lie in for as long as it takes. And actually, I don't think...
Was that your good wolf or your bad wolf?
You know what? Because
be honest. Go on. Be honest with yourself. Was it the lazy part of you, or was that being actually mindful about your body? Where you go, you know what? I'm going to take easy options.
It's a bit of both, because I think, like I said, for the last few years, probably since 2015, 2014, I've really, really got to prioritizing sleep, where I'm like, let me just, and also because I kind of know that I think I was off the last week, like with some sort of virus, even though I didn't really feel it, but there was that subtle edge missing. And I'm just like, you know what? Sleep is the best healer for so many things. So for me, I'm always, and I know that tomorrow I'm going to be getting up, and I've got a big day tomorrow. Like, I'm training all day, teaching in the evening. So for me, I'm like, sleep is my superpower. So I'll take it when I can get it. And I'm okay with like lying in a little bit longer now, because I just know that it's just, sometimes I would rather miss a gym session and sleep. If I did that all the time, yeah, maybe not so good.
I'm generally, I am envious, although I talk positively about being able to. I mean, you have to find coping mechanisms, right? And when you've had it for 2 decades, you just learn to cope with it. You don't have to. I can choose to get frustrated by the lack of sleep I get in comparison to, say, my wife, or I can choose just to be. And but it doesn't mean I'm not slightly envious of the fact that she can get into bed or get onto a plane or a train or wherever she wants, put her head down and she's gone. I'm like, oh.
I'm not so good on those, although I've got better with like earplugs, eye masks, and things like that I can do it a bit more now. But yeah, I think with the insomnia stuff, which is a whole other conversation, but for most people, if it's not like a psychological thing, like there's like ultimately you have to deal with the stress that is causing that in the first place. But most people, a lot of the sleep stuff can be attributable to, like, you know, the diet, the light, the habits, all of that sort of stuff that happens.
You might like this. So talking about that, I've got a new gadget on my table and it's just lit up. I've just had a little drink. I don't know if you know it. It's a Hydrate Spark Pro bottle. There you go. I'm not endorsed to use it or any of these things. I read about it in Stuff magazine. And I was on a plane. I just got back from Lisbon 2 days ago. And I ordered it while I was out there. It's already arrived. It's my first kind of day with it. Brilliant. I'm going to be interested if I'm still using it in a week. But it has an app. But basically, you fill it up and it has a little light at the bottom here, which lights up. And it's also got a weight in there. So you fill it up. So every time you drink, it tells my app how much I've drunk. So when the bottle's empty, it knows, which is great. And this lights up every, say, 20 minutes, go drink some more, drink some more. And then it goes different colors depending whether it needs a refill or not. And today, you'll be very pleased, Harry, because for those that don't know me at all, I don't drink water. Sometimes I can go days without drinking water. I'll drink coffee and tea, but I don't like water. I just don't like the taste of it. So I have to flavor it with everything. And I just never have that urge to get thirsty. I can, as you know, I can cycle all day in 40-degree heat in Croatia, and I'll drink because I'm told that I should.
You would be a world champion. If you drank water, I guarantee you'd be world champion, not just at the amateur level as well. I guarantee it.
Yeah, I don't have that urge to want to drink, but this has helped. So today, I think I'm up to about 3. Well, it must be 2. And I can probably tell you actually, about 2.5 liters, which for me is massive. Yeah, this is empty again. It's just lit up.
Yeah, I mean that's good. I mean, whatever works, right? Different things. I mean, like for me, my basic rule to everyone is like have it in sight. So that's why I've got my bottles within arm's reach, right? If it's out of sight, it's out of mind, and so I have to have it within arm's reach. And you know, sometimes I forget to drink. That's why I have different water bottles in different rooms, because if I don't have it, like I don't think I drank enough today for various reasons, and I felt it a little bit, but we need reminders a lot of the time. And
well, you'd be proud of me for that, Harry. You'd be proud of me.
Well, I'm proud of it, although you did say it's Ribena in there, not water.
It is Ribena. Is that bad? I don't know. Maybe that's a whole different subject. I mean, it's never going to be water.
Yeah, I'd put that in the not so good category, if I'm honest. But you know, you got to start somewhere. But you said you tried the Air Up bottle as well, haven't you? Have you tried the Air Up bottle?
I don't think so. No.
Who did I have that discussion with? I had this discussion with someone else who hated water, but I've seen these adverts because a lot of your taste comes from smell.
No, you told me about it, and it flavors it to like orange or something.
Yeah, but it's from the smell, not from. So it's regular water, but it feels like someone said it kind of works, but not quite. I'm interested to try it. I might even buy it for my mum because she doesn't.
This Hydrate bottle has an app, and it knows without me having to go into the app what I've drunk, and tells when to refill it, and it links.
Like so, you've constantly got to be Bluetoothed up, yeah.
Bluetoothed up. But it's great. You know, I like apps. It links to my health data, links to Garmin.
I have my phone either nowhere near me or on airplane mode most of the time, so it would never work. It would never light up.
This is another way that we are very different. I'm very, again, envious of the fact that you're able to disconnect from your phone more than I am. But hey, that's the world we live in.
Yeah, exactly. Well, there we go.
Speaking look, buddy, I'm conscious of time for people listening in. I've got some bad evil wolves to try and contend with this injury. We'll see how I'm doing next week when we catch up again. But I'm still frustrated. I'm still a bit angry, but I feel a lot better and energized having had a good chat with your good self. And yeah, we'll see what I've thrown myself into this time next week. Hopefully it won't be those voices.
Something positive, I'm sure, right? Find the balance, find the right path for you.
Find the right path. That's it. Absolutely. Listen, buddy, it's been a pleasure. Never ever a chore, and I will look forward to catching up with you same time next week.
Likewise.
Cheers, Harry.